welcome to Amor de Luna. I'm Crystal, I'm a relationship coach for women, and you keep up ending in situationships. Why? You're so intelligent, have a good head on your shoulders, and make smart life decisions, so why do we keep attracting the type of men that waste your time and don't want any commitment? Well, I'm going to be explaining to you all the juicy details as to why this keeps happening, how to recognize the provider and protector man you really want. I think a lot of women, well, people in general, are starting to understand more and more about themselves because therapy has become a lot more popular, thank God, and people are doing more research on relationships. But on this side of the internet, I'm not just going to give you advice. I want to explain the psychology, a little bit of the neuroscience, and biblical principles behind why you keep ending up in situationships with men who aren't ready for commitment. Because if you understand why you keep choosing the same type of person, if you don't understand why, you'll keep attracting the same relationship with a different face. And you're too grown for that. Number one, understand how you love. The first thing you need to understand isn't men, it's yourself. How you love is often influenced by how you were loved as a child. Not just your love language, but your entire experience of love growing up. Sorry, boo. We're going to be doing a therapy session. Real quick, 2 minutes, I promise. Were you given consistent love? Did you have a mother and a father? A present mother and father? Maybe there was trauma, maybe there was lack of love or a lack of a parent, maybe the parent and child dynamic was flipped. Maybe you became the parent while your parent acted more like a child. Maybe you were taking care of a sick parent growing up. Those things all affect how you see and approach love today. So get to reflecting on that and write it down, okay? I'll be waiting to hear your reflections and your questions. This is so important because research on attachment suggests that our early caregiving experiences can influence how we experience closeness, trust, and emotional safety in adult relationships. It doesn't mean you're stuck like that forever, but it can help explain why certain relationship patterns feel familiar. That's why it's so important to understand, because we often choose people based on what's familiar to us. If you weren't given consistent love and you constantly had to prove that you were worthy of it, prove that you weren't too much or that you were worth staying for, you may find yourself attracted to someone who's emotionally unavailable, who disappears on you, someone who doesn't share their feelings, someone who disappears, someone who is the complete opposite of what you actually need. Now you think, well, if that's what I went through, then should I naturally want someone who's secure, someone who's consistent, who shows up for you? Yeah, I mean, you would think that, right? But our brains don't actually want it to keep us happy. I know, ghetto. It's so ghetto. It does want to keep you safe. But a lot of times the opposite happens. We tend to look for what we grew up with because it's comfortable. Our trauma, all of that. It's familiar. Even if it doesn't feel good, even if it hurts. From a neuroscience perspective, our brains are constantly looking for familiar patterns, and sometimes it mistakes it for safety even when the relationship itself isn't healthy. If inconsistency, emotional distance, or unpredictability were a part of that experience, those dynamics sometimes feel strangely familiar in adulthood. And your brain thinks that's safe. This is one reason people sometimes feel an intense spark, quote unquote, with someone who's emotionally unavailable while feeling bored with someone who's emotionally healthy. That's why it's important to know how you love. So you can choose a partner based on what you actually need, not just what you're attracted to or what you want. And if you're watching this video, don't just blow me off. Be so for real. If what you've been choosing was working, you wouldn't be here watching this. And I love how the Bible doesn't just tell us to blindly follow our hearts. God tells us to guard them. Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. I quote this often. Notice it doesn't say follow your heart, guard it. Why? Because our feelings are real. They're fleeting, but they're not always wise. God calls us to use wisdom, and wisdom asks questions. It pays attention to patterns. It doesn't confuse chemistry with character. So let's talk about the attachment styles, because one thing that completely changed how I viewed relationships was learning them. There are 4 attachment styles, but today I want to focus on the 3 most commonly recognized while dating. There's anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and secure. Someone who's anxiously attached usually needs a lot of validation, affection, reassurance. Your girl was anxiously attached. You fall head over heels. And you'll do anything to please your partner just to feel connected. But they can learn to be more securely attached once they learn to stop focusing so much on themselves, respecting other people's autonomy, and letting people be themselves and getting their needs met by self-soothing and surrounding yourself with secure people. Now, on the other hand, you have someone that's avoidant, complete opposite, needs lots of space. They might be all in during the beginning because the relationship is exciting and new, so that replaces their attachment style. So they do want to spend time together, but once the relationship starts getting deeper, once the bubbly feelings start to settle down, they start to pull away. They stop communicating as much. They shut you out, don't let you in, see your needs as too much. They become emotionally unavailable, but they can become more secure, paying more attention to themselves and communicating instead of holding things in, coming to terms with feelings being important parts of relationships instead of seeing them as weaknesses. Now, secure, they know how to satisfy their own needs and adjust to their partner's needs. They communicate effectively, have clear boundaries, and if you're a secure attachment, well, congrats. No, but seriously, avoidant and anxious, they can learn to rewire their brains by practicing safe and secure habits and surrounding themselves with secure people. And if you're in love with someone that's anxiously attached or unavoidant, don't just decide this person is a narcissist and leave. Like, you have to have patience. I mean, if someone had everything you wanted in a husband but they're avoidant or anxious, it doesn't automatically disqualify them. Stop asking, am I attracted to them? Or look up on TikTok what signs that makes him the one. Can he take accountability? Is he willing to grow? Because attachment style isn't the most important thing. His character is. Someone can have anxious tendencies, someone can have avoidant tendencies, but if they're humble, self-aware, open to feedback, communicate, committed to growth, they're already moving towards secure attachment. That's the kind of person you want to build a marriage with, not someone who's perfect, but someone who's willing to grow. Number 2 is know your standards. What are standards? Let's do that, right? Women keep getting frustrated and ending up in situations because you don't actually know what you're looking for. And I've been there. I've been married the first time with no standards, and I was frustrated for many, many years. So how do you deal with that? You have to know what you're looking for. What do you actually want in a husband? And I'm not talking about physical features. Like, seriously, think about it. If you had a daughter, who would you want her to marry? If you had a son, who would you want him to become? Loyalty is obviously a big one, and I don't mean just faithfulness. I mean loyalty as in they have your back, they're there for you, they're dependable. Another one is accountability. If they say they're going to do something, they actually follow through on it. You gotta look at these character traits. Number 3, communicate your standards and start prioritizing boundaries. Here's something I wish I understood years ago. Your standards and boundaries work together. Your standards tell you what you're looking for. Your boundaries determine how you'll respond when those standards aren't being met or honored. For example, let's say one of your standards is consistent communication. Now imagine you're with someone who disappears for 3 days without saying anything. Instead of making excuses, chasing, or pretending it doesn't bother you, you communicate. Hey, communication is really important to me. When I didn't hear from you for days, that don't align with the kind of relationship I'm looking for. Period. Pay attention to what they do after that. What is not just what he says, but what he does in response to your boundary. Because character isn't revealed by promises or words, it's revealed by patterns. So let me be clear, a boundary isn't you have to text me every hour. That's control. A healthy boundary sounds more like I understand everyone communicates differently, but I also know that consistent communication is important to me. If we're not able to meet each other's needs in this area, then we might not be a fit. Do you see the difference? You're not trying to control the other person. You're deciding what kind of relationship you're willing to participate in. That's what boundaries are. They're not punishments. They're clarity. It's respecting yourself. Watch the responses though. There's so many women miss a green flag. It's not whether a man has flaws. The question is, what does he do when you bring one? When you bring up a boundary to his attention? Does he get defensive, blame you, minimize your feelings? Or does he actually listen to you? Does he ask questions? Does he genuinely try to understand you and make an effort to grow? Because someone who's emotionally healthy doesn't have to have it all right every time. But they are genuinely teachable. The same is true for you. If your future husband communicates one of his needs or boundaries, your goal isn't to become defensive. Your goal is to ask, how can I love this person better? Marriage isn't about winning. It's about two people choosing growth over pride. I think this is why Proverbs talks so much about character and wisdom. Proverbs doesn't tell us to look for someone who's charming, In fact, it warns us that charm can be deceptive. Character is what lasts. And in marriage, character will carry you much farther than chemistry ever will. So, now let's talk about the conversations you need to be having right now. I know this is going to make people uncomfortable, but you need to be talking about marriage, children, faith, and politics. Those are the conversations I think you should be having the first, second, max the third date. Now, if you want your first date to just be fun, getting to know each other, learning the basics, cool, I'm fine with that. But personally, I would not go past the second date, max the third, without talking about marriage, children, faith, and politics. Why? Because those are some of the biggest areas of compatibility in relationships. If you're not on the same page about marriage, you're not on the same page about children, your faith is completely different, your values are completely different, those are things that can create major conflict later, and why you keep ending up in situationships. And here's something really important. You cannot knowingly enter a relationship with someone whose core beliefs are different from yours, hoping you're going to change them later. That's not fair. If they tell you from the beginning, I don't want kids, or I never want to get married, or even my faith is this, believe them. Because if you accept that relationship anyways, despite all that, it isn't fair 6 months later, 2 years later, to expect them to become someone they already told you they weren't. Now, if they genuinely change over time on their own, that's different. People grow, mature, life happens, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about ignoring what someone clearly tells you because you're hoping love will change them. You will change them. Why do I say the second or third date? I know you're probably freaking out a little bit. You're thinking, Crystal, that's way too soon. I get it. It feels intimidating. But if you're watching this video, it's because you're tired of wasting your time. Guess what's going to keep happening if you don't have those conversations? You're going to keep getting emotionally attached before you know whether you're actually compatible with this person. And here's where the neuroscience comes in. Every time you spend time with someone, every date, every conversation, text messages, kiss, your brain starts building an emotional attachment. Neurochemicals involved in bonding and reward can make someone feel increasingly significant to us over time. That's one reason why it becomes harder to evaluate relationships objectively as your emotional investment grows. Little by little, you start getting attached. And guess what happens? You don't want to bring up marriage now. You don't want to ask about kids. You don't want to talk about faith. Because now you're afraid they'll leave. You're afraid you'll create conflict. You're afraid that the relationship will end. So you stay quiet. You keep hoping everything will work itself out somehow. Then 6 months later, a year later, 2 years, you're sitting there wondering, damn, how do I end up here again? You're in another situationship. You're in another relationship where you're completely at odds with each other. He doesn't want marriage. You do. He doesn't want children. You do. Your values aren't aligned, and now you're heartbroken because you love him, but you're back watching another video trying to figure out where it all went wrong. And if I'm being honest, it probably went wrong when you avoided the conversations that could have saved you months or even years of heartache. So, if you're taking anything away from this video, let it be this. Understand how you love. Know your standards. Communicate them and your boundaries. Learn how to recognize attachment styles, not so you can label people, but so you can understand how they love and whether they're willing to grow. And most importantly, choose someone based on their character, not just the chemistry, not feelings, not potential. Please. Because no one is perfect. You are also going to make mistakes. He's going to make mistakes. The goal isn't to find a perfect husband. The goal is to find someone who character, values, and willingness to grow align with yours. Provider and protector husband. Someone who's willing to become a safe person for you just as you're willing to become a safe person for them. That's how you stop ending up in situationships. Not by changing who you're attracted to overnight, but by becoming intentional about who you choose. Because a self-led woman doesn't just ask, do I love him? She asks, is this someone I can build a healthy, God-honoring life with? And if the answer is yes, keep building. If the answer is no, love yourself enough to walk away. I'll see you in the next video. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're watching this on the podcast, rate this episode as it helps me reach more people. And share it with the woman that's currently in a situationships. Bye.